Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. 1 2 1 2. Just having a test of some stuff, folks. Hopefully this is working. I had to turn the music off to get it to work. We'll be with you shortly. Okay, so technology being what it will be, hopefully this is going to work. Hey, there we go. It had to think there for a second. What I now need to do is see if this will work. Also need to just adjust that so it fits. But a Friday night seemed as good a night as any to do some testing out on the stream, but the plugins have not been working very well. So let's see if we can get other bits and pieces working. Stuff appears to be ticking its way through. Ah, finally it has worked. There we go. It was not liking things a moment ago. Live. Let's move that over there because that's what we want. There we go. There we go. Ah, better. Better, 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 which is what we wanted. It's been a bit of a wonky one just from trying to get everything to work. But like I say, testing out some bits and pieces because I'm figuring out what I'm going to need to do for some of the changes I'm making. The problem is you can only really test it live. So the pre-show kind of went a bit wonky today. Why is that so far across that way? There we go. It's because I've moved my setup the wrong way around. Plenty going on tonight as well, and now I can actually see the chat, which is really, really helpful. What we need to do is we need to click some buttons as well and just make sure I have all of my notes and everything ready. But yeah, hopefully everyone's doing all right. I'll just give it another couple of minutes for people to come in. If someone can pop something in the chat, it would be appreciated, just so that I can make sure things are working and that you can all actually see what's going on. That would be appreciated. Just because I need, like I say, I need to test things as much as anything else. Good evening, Andrew. Thank you. Making sure that people can hear me. So, yeah, a lot going on. Like I say, so I'll keep the volume on. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, evening, John. That's what we like to see. A few people coming in. So if I hit the button, and it'll go back to the loading screen. This new bit has been done by Max. Max Van Mullen's done this for us. Of course, you'll see his graphics in a bit. But like I say, just testing out some bits and pieces. Oh, was thinking about it. There we go. I was thinking about it. And like I say, it's just a case of the laptop possibly not being quite as heavy duty, and I might need to have a figure out about some of the settings again. Is the trick. The joy of doing a show on a Friday means we grab the first alcoholic beverage to hand, which again is a can of Stiegl Radler, because they're 4 for $3 in Sainsbury's, and they taste nice, is the short version. Evening, Nikki. Hope you're alright, mate. The definitely got a few bits and pieces we obviously need to talk about, which of course Nikki will find interesting, no doubt. Let's move back across that way. People are going to start filtering in, hopefully, as the news has gone out. Tried doing an actual proper video of bits and pieces on the story to see if that changes any bits and pieces as well. We'll figure stuff out as we go. Either way, we better get rocking and rolling. It's suddenly got very warm in this room. I'm not quite sure why, but we'll work that one out as we go. Guys, from the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Friday rather than a Wednesday, but either way, it is Friday. It is 8 PM, and welcome back to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through another weird, wonderful and wacky world of British hockey, because what do we do here on the What's Current stream? Every game, every league, this is where British hockey lives. We cover absolutely everything from Belfast to Bradford, Leeds to Lee Valley. If any senior game played men's and women's across all the divisions over the last, 9 days since we last streamed, we'll make sure that we touch base on it at least a little bit, go through all the scores, everything from the Elite League to the National Division, Division 1 and Division 2 North and South, SNL, WNIHL. If it happened, we'll be talking about it over the next sort of 60 to 90 minutes or so, as well as all the big news. Like I said, you've seen the episode title for this week, VIVA OLYMPIA. We will, of course, be touching on the fact that some rather big international hockey has been played. If you didn't watch this afternoon's game between Canada and Finland, oh my giddy aunt, what a game that was. There's Fife to talk about. There is all the bits and pieces going on in the National Division as Swindon eventually stop tripping over their own skates and start edging themselves ever closer towards the National Division title. We, of course, have one champion crowned in British hockey already, which is pretty impressive, that one of the league titles was wrapped up before we even hit the Cup finals. And, of course, lots going on up in Scotland and the women's game as well. The WNHL Elite, well, that league title looks like it could have potentially be going any one of 4 ways at the moment. It's a really, really interesting race in the top flight of British women's hockey. Either way, we need to do our usual bits and pieces. Let's quickly bash out the housekeeping. If you know the words, do hum along. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one website for all things British hockey related. Please follow me on my journey through commentating in the Elite League this year. In the Box Thinking is your insight into what it's like to commentate on the Elite League, as well as a breakdown of every game that I get the privilege of commentating on, which means you have had 2 in the last couple of days. We have Sunday's game from the Guildford Flames against Cardiff, and then we have Wednesday's game from Guildford versus Dundee, which came out earlier this evening. I've written about just under 2,000 words in the space of a couple of days, which is fun to try and do, but it worked out in the end. That is all there. What else have we got on the website this season? Running with the Herd. Anytime I manage to get back to a Bison game, you'll get one from that. We've even had the one Banners on the Road from our trip over to Belfast. And the other trick, of course, is Hockey Stories, our long-form, in-depth content series, working on some bits and pieces because we are a month and 4 days removed. Banners on the Wall turns 15 years old on the 24th of March. Trying to get some bits and pieces lined up. Been speaking to a very interesting character who, if I can manage to pin them down for an interview in time ahead of the anniversary, will be really good. Got some other ideas. The plan is, as we get towards the end of March, we'll try and have a bit of a blitz. Try and get myself out and about on a few podcasts and a few shows, as well as just putting stuff out there. Because actually, you know what? I didn't really celebrate the 10th anniversary as much as I would have liked to, just because we were slap bang in the middle of COVID. 15 feels like a decent number to kind of make a bit of a fuss, because I don't know, I've worked bloody hard over the last decade and a half of doing this to put myself into the position that I am in, which is fun, and I think we should celebrate that. But also as well, the one thing I'm really keen to celebrate on is not just like my own hard work, because it's really easy to blow your own trumpet in moments like this, but also as well the vast array of other people out there doing really, really awesome stuff, because for whatever reason people listen to me, so if I can kind of amplify what other folk are doing, but also as well just to kind of get this idea out there that there's people making a lot of really cool stuff, and people are allowed to check out as much or as little as they want. But also as well, same with hockey. There's plenty of bits and pieces going on. It's not just the league you watch on a weekly basis. You know, one of the things I'm really big on, like I say, we do the show where we cover all 11 senior leagues across Britain. And there's something for everybody. And we've got people who come in who are regulars, who will watch teams. You know, we've got someone I think of like Dave, who watches the games in Romford, but also goes and watches the women's stuff in Cambridge as well, which is pretty awesome. And I just want this idea of people taking one game a season and going and watching that stuff. Either way, you have got... in terms of hockey stories from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond, everything that you need to keep yourself entertained is over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And of course, as you saw from our new little intro video, make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's try and get the numbers up on that. That'd be really, really awesome. Well, usually here on a Wednesday night, but because I had to talk about Guildford and Dundee, I was not here. So we're doing it on a Friday instead, back to usual as we can, because that Wednesday was the last Wednesday night game of the Flame season, which means the run-in is in. We are on our way. Wednesday nights until the end of the British hockey season, here to talk about absolutely anything and everything. I want my beer, so I'm grabbing my beer. This is what it's like to be Nicky, except I can't drink wine. Sorry. Don't like the taste of the stuff. So, can of Radler will have to do the trick on that front. But yeah, links in the description to all of our social media bits and pieces. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Blue Sky, as well as the link to our virtual busking out over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. It just helps keep the lights on and keep the wheels turning. Not going behind a paywall, not my style. And you don't have, if you haven't got the money to contribute, just share stuff out. That's all we really ask. If you like what you see, tell people about it. That's generally how it is. Don't keep the good stuff to yourself. But as we are here, like I say, we're on YouTube, usually on Wednesday night, tonight on a Friday. But the joy, of course, means we love our catch-up crew. We always love our catch-up crew. For the folk who kind of pick bits and pieces up when they've got the time to. If you join us live, you do get the wonder of the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chuck in. As we talk through the wonders of British hockey over the next little while, please feel free to stick it in the chat. All that we ask is that you do follow the golden rule. BOTW rule number 1, DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we will have a jolly good time. Mr. Andrew Day has been doing the Lord's work and keeping us updated in the chat. Belfast 2-0 up on Cardiff. Massive game potentially in the direction of the Elite League title. With those two going head to head, of course, pretty much a four-way race at the top of the Elite League at the moment. And the Giants 2-0 to the good. Mike Lee, who might be in the running for Elite League MVP this season, and Jordan Kawaguchi scoring within about sort of just under 2 minutes worth of each other. They have the Giants ahead in that huge game at the Vindico. In the National Division, Emil Tzvek, the man on a hunt for a lady in Romford, has the Hull Seahawks 1-0 to the good away at Leeds. The Seahawks on a 6-game winning run. That game is at the end of the first at the moment, and it is hit 8:10, which means the United States and Slovakia have faced off in the second semi-final of the Olympics men's tournament. Of course, we saw yesterday the United States claiming gold in overtime in the women's tournament, beating Canada by 2-1. The Canadians, of course, had been ahead in that game. Kristen O'Neill's shorthanded goal had the Canadians ahead just after the start of the second period, but then a late goal in regulation time from Hilary Knight with the netminder pull, extra attacker on, and Knight getting the puck into the net, and then Alina Muller with the OT. Not Alina Muller, she's the Swiss player. I've read the wrong line there. Megan Keller with the OT winner for the United States. Switzerland claimed bronze in overtime. It's Alina Muller who scored the OT winner for the Swiss to get their first ever bronze medal in the women's tournament. But yes, we of course will be keeping tabs. Stick the scores in the chat when they happen of whatever game it is you are keeping tabs on. I am very quickly going to click some buttons and put at least get the score and bits and pieces up for the USA-Slovakia game. Connor Hellebuck in net, of course, for the United States. Sam Hlavai for Slovakia. Nikki, of course, who's lurking around in the chat, 4,000 and counting, of course. Big fans of the stuff that Nikki does. Nikki, of course, was over in Milan, so he will no doubt have his own thoughts for bits and pieces. About time I have you back on. Yeah, we probably should. We haven't had it we haven't been on for a while, have I? So it seems as good a time as any as we edge towards bits and pieces. Goal at the Vindico, and Koen Olszewski has the Devils on the board. A huge goal for Paul Thompson's side as the dying embers of the second period float around at the Vindico. 36-14 the time of that goal. I quite like Olszewski. I kind of feel like he should have an extra gear to him, but we need to just sort of see whether he can kind of pull it out. But a big goal for the Cardiff Devils. 2-0 down, and now back within touching distance are the Welsh side. But yeah, I'll throw this out there just because I didn't do a warm-up question, just because I was testing and fiddling around, doing bits and pieces with the stream. So like I say, if you've not seen it, Max's bits and pieces that he put on, that little video he did for me, that's kind of the start. Needed to do a test on it. I did a sort of like a dead test to kind of make sure bits and pieces were working, or at least that the video would kind of be inputted and it would all work in that sense. And it appears to be okay. It looks really good. The issue is finding ways to make sure that the CPU and the GPU on my laptop, so the stuff that kind of makes the wheels run for the hamster, are the important bits. And like I say, asking my computer to do a lot at the same time, I might need to have a look at a little bit of a hardware upgrade. Dylan Larkin has the United States ahead in the other semi-final already, 4:19 into the game, and the Slovaks already a goal down. We will see whether they have any response, whether the United States are going to smash their way through. Speaking of the US, if you haven't seen it, and I appreciate, for the most part, as far as I'm aware, we're all grown-ups here. If you haven't watched the Kachuk brothers interview with Elmo from Sesame Street, do yourself a favour and go watch it, because it's really funny. Mate, Milan was phenomenal. The stuff these guys play at that level is insane. I think the thing that strikes me, and I've always been a big proponent of the big ice. Now, we know that the ice is smaller than they initially thought it was going to be. It's the amount that they're able to do in such a compressed space that I always find really interesting. I'm not one of these people who agrees with this nonsense that, oh, the big ice means there's less goals. It's what you do with the space that's the thing. But yeah, the fact that the ice is smaller than they were anticipating and they're still able to do so much, I think is the thing, and the speed at which they do it. Also, for any and all discussion, Conor McDavid has been playing out of his mind. This is a man, of course, who Conor McDavid, having played for Edmonton, come so close to the cup in the last couple of years and not getting over the line. This guy wants to win something. You know, this is in the hate to lose category because he's lost so much, and sometimes they say you have to lose to learn. Well, Conor McDavid is done learning. It feels like he is fully on board with just trying to win right now, and you can be really interesting to see what happens to Edmonton off the back of this if McDavid gets the gold medal, because yeah, you wouldn't want to stand in Conor McDavid's way right now. He looks like a man on an absolute mission at the moment. What we do need to do is I'm going to hit that button, and then we are just going to work our way through the results. So we're going to go back to last week and just work our way through. So we're up to date up to this point as it stands. So this is so as we go back to last weekend, so a week ago tonight was Glasgow with their 4-3 overtime win over the Manchester Storm. Manchester struggling for a little bit of form up to this point. This was their 5th defeat on the spin. They were getting points in OT, which of course is really, really big when it comes to the playoffs. Getting that 5th spot is going to be huge for Cam Critchlow's side. But again, getting a bit of form is also really, really important. Last Saturday, then, it was that the first of a couple of games for Cardiff that were really, really big, and they screwed the pooch. Sheffield have really kind of picked up their form in recent weeks and managed to eke out that 5-2 victory down at the Vindico. Fife managed to come from 3-1 down. Guildford 3-1 up after 40 minutes. A natural hat-trick from Cole Hewley had the Flames in the commanding position, and then, well, the Flames just screwed the pooch themselves a little bit, it should be said. 3 unanswered goals from the Flyers in the final period, and Fife picking up 2 points and giving Guildford a long journey home. Coventry with a comfortable 6-2 win over Dundee last Saturday night, and then Manchester finally back to winning ways as the about face they headed to the storm shelter against Glasgow and finally got the shootout win. And then the first of the big double header last weekend, Belfast got the 2 points on Saturday against the Nottingham Panthers. That then took us into Sunday. He says just waiting for his graphics to actually move along, which is really irritating. It's not doing what I want it to do. There we go. It changed on the screen for you, but it didn't change for me, which is really annoying. Sheffield got a 4-point weekend as they beat Coventry by 4-2. Big outburst here from the Steelers late on. The Blaze were 2-0 to the good before losing out that one. Nottingham managed to get a result. It was 3-2 Nottingham at the end of the second period. JJ Pickenich scored early in the third to tie it up at 3, but Nottingham managed to find their way through, getting a split of the weekend, 5-3 to Danny Stewart's side on Sunday. Dundee with over 2,100 people at the DIA for the big derby. And of course, we'll talk about Fife in a minute, but obviously a lot going on for the Flyers, and they didn't get the points there. Only a 2-point weekend for Jamie Russell's side. Dundee with a very big win that they desperately needed into the bargain. And then, well, somewhat of a contentious end on Sunday between Guildford and Cardiff, but ultimately not called penalties from the refs or things that they called that you wouldn't have necessarily called themselves. Guildford were 2-1 up and got themselves into penalty trouble late. The Cardiff had a shocker of a second period in this game. They were just taking far too many penalties, and whilst I can appreciate fans of hockey fights will have enjoyed Jonathan Racine going to battle twice in the space of one period, left the Flames a little bit short-handed on the back end, and when it got to the death, Joe Martin with the game-tying goal in regulation time before Gleeson Fournier's overtime winner. And it's one of those frustrating things. It's there in my write-up. For me, the refs missed an interference call on Nolan Yaremko. He's not standing his ground. He steps into Alvaro's path as Alvaro's trying to get himself back into his defensive position. But then Alvaro sees the red mist and ends up cross-checking Brandon Estes in the back. Yaremko doesn't get called. Alvaro does. It gives the Devils a power play heading into OT. Flames well worth the point at least, but the Devils were the ones who kept their heads at the death and got the extra. And then, of course, there is Wednesday night's game from the league play, which was where I was last night. The write-up came out today over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Guildford quite comfortable in a 6-2 victory. It was close for a little bit, and credit to Dundee for putting up a bit of a fight, but they gave the Flames far too much space, far too much time, and I think you can kind of tell when you watch the highlights. Watch Travis Brown's goal. And watch the first goal as well that Jack Jacome scores. They are kind of symptomatic of what a lot of the play was in this one. Then, of course, the joy of the Challenge Cup. We should know one of the teams in the final, but we don't. Belfast versus Coventry with the second leg meant to be on Wednesday night. Lots of Coventry fans over in Belfast in anticipation of that second leg, and it was cancelled. It will now be played at the beginning of March. But the first leg of the other game did go ahead, and a comfortable 3-0 win for the Nottingham Panthers. They've got all 3 goals coming in the first period for the hosts. Was speaking to David Grant from 3 on 3 earlier, of course, big Steelers fan, did watch the game, and he said to me it was kind of one of those games where if they got one, they'd have got 2. The problem for the Steelers was Kevin Carr did not let them get 1, and it is a hill to climb for the Steelers come the second leg of this one. So the league table, as it stands, of course, this doesn't include what's going on tonight. But going into this evening, the Giants had a game in hand on Dundee and on Cardiff had quite a few points over Dundee. Belfast with 4-point spring over Cardiff and a game in hand. If Belfast win tonight, it is a huge step for Adam Keefe's side back towards retaining their Elite League title. Sheffield are 5 points off of Belfast, having played a game more. Nottingham are 6 points off of Belfast, having played the same number of games. Then, of course, a big spring down because Manchester are in 5th. Coventry, Guildford and Glasgow are on the inside looking out. It is going to take something quite substantial from Dundee or Fife to make the playoffs at this stage. As we know, Cardiff and Belfast ongoing at the moment, 2-1 to Belfast at the end of the second period at the Vindico. And then into Saturday night. Firstly, where you can find me, the Flames for once are the early shows. They usually are on a Saturday. 6 p.m. face-off for the Guildford Flames against the Sheffield Steelers. Will be live on Flames TV from about the sort of 10 to 5 to 6 sort of region to take you through that one. Really interested to see what the Flames can do. Had a really confident, really morale-boosting performance on Wednesday. But the Steelers are a very, very different animal than Dundee right now. I'm fascinated to see what happens, particularly as these two sides will go head-to-head twice this weekend. Dundee looked to rebound from Wednesday's loss at home against Coventry, who are understandably quite frustrated after Wednesday, so I am a little bit worried as to what will happen to Dundee. Glasgow take on Fife, Manchester take on Nottingham to round out Saturday. And then into Sunday, Belfast take on Dundee for the 735th time. Another big title game with title implications. Nottingham versus Cardiff at the Motorpoint on Sunday. Sheffield versus Guildford, as we already talked about. Fife and Glasgow will about face Coventry, head home to the Sky Dome to take on the Manchester Storm. We then move into the National Division. We go to about a week ago, and the Bison's tough run keeps on going. They just can't seem to buy a win at the moment, losing 3-0 at home. Alexei Heiskanen for the Seahawks doing absolute bits and gets his first shutout in British hockey. Leeds win the Nell Classico on Friday night, beating Swindon by 6-3. And then another shock for Swindon the following night, not only losing at home, but losing at home to Solway. And this is a team that they have regularly done very, very well against. But the Cats, still in a commanding position at the top of the league, but they are starting to trip over their own feet ever so slightly. Basingstoke, well, they were, again, back in a hole against Bristol before dragging themselves out of it. And who else but Brendan Sellen in overtime with the winner to get the Bison back in the win column and snap a bit of a terrible run that they've been having. MK, we'll do Fife and MK once we've gotten past the results from these bits because there's so much to talk about. But another really solid win. Sean Easton's side are really not just starting to cement their playoff place, they're starting to chase down Milton Keynes into the bargain. 6-4 win for the Raiders at the Thunderdome. Leeds got the 4 points out of the weekend, beating the Steel Dogs by 2-1. And these sort of results only really benefit Swindon. Telford with the Rock'em Sock'em Robot Show. It's a gunfight at the OK Corral. The Tigers beating the Phantoms by 7-4 on Saturday night. Sunday, well, the Puppy Bowl went the way of the Pitbulls. Another shot in the foot for the Sheffield Steel Dogs as they just can't seem to win at the right moments. Romford get into the bargain with a 4-point weekend as they beat Leeds by 4-3 at the Sapphire. Hull's winning run keeps going. Like we said, it was 6 games on the bounce heading into tonight. A pretty comprehensive 5-1 win over MK. And what we eventually found out yesterday was Tim Wallace's last game for now in charge of the Milton Keynes side. Peterborough, though, after losing on Saturday night, they did get something out of the weekend. They beat Solway by 4-1 at home on Sunday. And then there's been all of the games that have been going on this week so far. Another loss for Sheffield, which only keeps denting their title hopes. Telford winning by 4-2 at I Sheffield on Tuesday. Wednesday night, as I was high above my little Tyro scaffold, well, the Bristol Pitbulls looked like they were home and dry. Good teams find a way. Wildcats win in OT. A huge, huge win for Swindon as the title now really starts to loom large, particularly with the result, as you can see below. Hull with that shootout win against Leeds at the world's most versatile arena. And then Romford win again. A 5-2 victory on Wednesday night in Peterborough against the Phantoms. And you have to start to wonder to yourself, the Raiders have really started to get things going here. Are they an outside bet, not just for scraping into the playoffs? Can the Raiders get themselves back to Coventry under Sean Easton? And then there is last night's game, a late short-handed winner from Jordan Spadafor, of all people. What was a tough day for the MK Lightning as an organisation. They do, however, manage to get some points on the board and beat the Bison by 4-3. The National Division title, as it stands then, the Cats are still in a pretty commanding position. They are 11 points clear of Sheffield with a game in hand, and at the moment the time and the points are ticking down. Swindon need a few more wins and they will be over the line as National Division champions. Leeds are in third place, But the top 3 have now officially qualified for the postseason. Peterborough in 4th, Hull, Telford, MK and Romford are on the inside looking out, though the Raiders have done such good business recently. They have a 7-point jump over Solway in 9th. The Bison are bottom of the table. They have 2 points to catch up on Bristol, but do have a game in hand over the sides above them. A win for the Bison would take them above the Pitbulls. We'll stomp at their last 5 games. Swindon 2-3, Leeds 2-1, Sheffield 0-5. Feels like the top 3 have all kind of faltered at the same time, which is kind of weird. It does remind me, ever so slightly, and I'm just going to quickly press some buttons here. It does remind me ever so slightly of the first National Division season, the one that was sort of ended by COVID, where between Swindon and Telford, nobody seemed to want to win the title in the last couple of weeks. But it is what it is on that front. The fixtures, the graphics, of course, done by the fantastic Max Van Mullen. It includes Thursday, because Max forgot I was commentating on Wednesday, so he did them for me anyway. Bison and Milton Keynes we already know about. Leeds and Hull ongoing right now. 1-0 Hull, last we were aware of. Into Saturday then, and of course a fair few big games on the docket. The Mini Nel Classico, or whatever we're calling it now. Swindon versus Basingstoke. Solway take on Leeds, which could be a very interesting one given Solway's recent form. Sheffield look to get anything at all out of Romford, though you wouldn't bet against the Raiders right now. MK versus Telford. Bristol host Peterborough. And into Sunday, well, the game that was meant to be the first game, that wasn't the first game, finally happens. Officially, the last game of the Cup group stage happens on Sunday. Don't ask. Basingstoke versus Solway. Hull take on Swindon. Peterborough versus Bristol. Romford versus Sheffield down at the Sapphire. And Telford at home on a Sunday, as always, to take on the MK Lightning. We'll bring us back up to full screen. I'm going to have a pause and take a breath. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings as we talk about, as we haven't gone through the Elite League and Hull, the Elite League and the National Division. We need to talk, of course, about the 2 big bits of news. Firstly, in the Elite League, the fact that we, of course, have had statement number, out of 5 now? It feels like they've made more statements than wins, but of course there was a lot of bits and pieces going on. Nicky talked about it on 4,000 and Counting. We talked about it. Everyone's talked about it all over the show. But the fact that the news was that the 5 Flyers were reportedly in a spot of bother, into a variety of bits and pieces doing the rounds in terms of a precarious financial position in Fife. Talks of players not playing because of unpaid wages, equipment bills not paid, jersey bills not paid by the Flyers. It was sort of alluded to by Jamie Russell that they've been a tough week for Fife, and the players prior to their in his sort of post game interview after the win against Guildford. But a lot of bits and pieces kind of flying around that the Flyers were in trouble. And then today we had we had a club update come from one of the ownership, Felix Kozak, and it's a bit of an it's an interesting one. If you've not had a chance to read it, do go check it out. It is on the Flyers website, but we'll quickly bash through it here as we talk about it. Over the past several days, the Fife Flyers ownership group has conducted a comprehensive review of the club's operations, finances, and overall direction, both on and off the ice. Fair enough. Season's not gone very well when it's been all over the place. If you think of post-Christmas with guys leaving because of injury, because Giordano Fenora has now gone home because of surgery. The whole palaver with David Booth and every signing of Milan Lucic as well, which of course caused a massive amount of issues for some people. Our first priority is to provide clarity and reassurance to our supporters. Fair enough. Short-term funding has been secured to stabilise the club and ensure that immediate obligations are met. Okay, so this kind of answers the immediate question. So it sounds like, yes, there has been a financial issue at Hull, but they appear to have done something about that. There's of course been a variety of rumours about people, even Milan Lucic putting in some of his money. No confirmation at this point, it seems like. At the same time, necessary corrective steps have been taken to place the organisation on firmer and more responsible footing. At this point, I'm always very interested. You wait at that part of the paragraph for what comes next. A newly formed management group has now assumed leadership and injected fresh capital into the club. Well, we didn't really know who the owners were at the start of the season, so telling us there's been a change doesn't mean anything because we didn't really know who it was before hand. This group is firmly committed to addressing the consequences of decisions made during the recent transitional period that did not align with sustainable governance or prudent financial management. Now, a lot of people might take that as throwing a few people under the bus. For example, is this a pop at an owner who has stepped away? Is this a pop at Gareth Chalmers, at Max Babrea, at Craig Anderson, anybody else? Quite opaque language that doesn't really tell us anything in the immediacy. Certain commitments were undertaken without sufficient regard for long-term viability, clearly, and the impact of those choices have been felt across the organisation and within our community. Also, clearly, those individuals are no longer involved. Which individuals? Because we didn't know. So telling that doesn't mean anything. The present leadership's focus is clear: restore stability, strengthen oversight, and rebuild trust through disciplined and accountable stewardship. Really nice words. How do you intend to do any of that would be my question. Sustainability is not an objective, it's the foundation of our path forward. Operating beyond our means is neither realistic nor fair to our supporters, partners or players. Yes. Every decision moving ahead will be guided by financial discipline, transparency and a long-term commitment to the health of the club. Well, yeah, the transparency bit has not started well because this statement hasn't said much so far. To our players and coaching staff, we recognise the uncertainty this period has created and the professionalism you've shown throughout it. You represent this club every day through your work ethic and commitment, and you deserve a stable and well-managed organisation behind you. We are committed to providing that foundation so you can fully focus on performance and pride in the jersey. Fair enough. Apologising for scuffing things and making it hard to do your job. Reasonable. To our suppliers and business partners, we acknowledge the strain that recent instability may have caused. Your services and support are essential to the operation of this club, and rebuilding independent and transparent relationships with you is a priority. We intend to engage openly and responsibly as we move forward. You don't intend too much to they're not going to say too much of the business part out loud. Reasonable. With renewed leadership under COO Stephen Thompson, of course the man who was involved in bits in football in Dundee and was not a popular signing for some, and a strengthened operational structure, we believe the right team is now in place to guide the Fife Flyers into a more stable and competitive future. We are deeply grateful to our fans and sponsors for their loyalty and patience during this period of transition. Your support has sustained this club through difficult moments, and it will be central to its renewal. This is your kingdom. Our responsibility now is to ensure that the Five Flyers represent not only passion and pride on the ice, but integrity and sustainability of it, worthy of the people of Fife and of generations who stand behind this badge. Felix Kozak signs that one off. Now, I did see somebody had chucked that through an AI filter, and there was a high chance some of that was written by AI, I noticed. But there are some bits of that aren't bad. Certainly apologising to the players out loud in public, I think is actually quite a smart thing to do, because the one thing that the people are there to support is the club and the people who wear the jersey. So the fact that the club are saying to the playing squad, not just behind closed doors but out loud, we've got this wrong and we apologise because we've made it really hard for you to do the thing that you do, I actually don't think is a terrible idea. The bits at the front where they throw people under the bus but don't name them properly, so you're kind of guessing and not really being overly transparent about who's put money into bits and pieces. I don't like that, because that's kind of got us into the situation that we were already in. And I think the Flyers said they want to talk about transparency. Transparency means being transparent, and the first half of that PR is not transparent to a degree where I feel that they have been transparent enough. One man's opinion, but then again, you're here listening to me yammer on about it, so that is where that stands. But what do you think of that Five Flyers press release? Are you happy with it? I know I see some people were quite pleased about it. I am less pleased by it. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, stick those down in the chat as well, because along with Fife, with statements, MK of course had their statements. The news coming out a couple of hours before face-off against Basingstoke on Thursday that Tim Wallace has stepped away from coaching duties at the moment of the Milton Keynes Lightning. Joe Wilson has left the club altogether, and Lewis Christie is now the interim head coach of the MK Lightning. Of course, getting off to a perfect start on Thursday night with that 4-3 win over Basingstoke. But another statement that answered some bits but didn't answer others. What does Tim Wallace stepping away from his duties for the time being mean? Is he taking a leave of absence? Is he coming back? I've had a few people say to me, well, if he was coming back, they would have been much more direct language. This feels like potentially it is the end of Tim Wallace's time at the MK Lightning. The problem, of course, is that we're all left guessing and talking about it. First thing I would say is that I hope Tim Wallace is okay. I hope he's stepped away because he's trying to refresh himself for next season, maybe becoming a director of hockey role style thing for MK and letting Lewis coach be the coach and doing it that way. Although Tim Wallace as director of hockey would be an interesting decision given the fact that one of the big issues this year has been MK's recruitment. I know Nicky said it, I know we've said it before, but this roster is lopsided. Gardening leave, yeah, it does feel a bit like that. I can't lie, John. But it's another odd statement that has many words but doesn't say an awful lot. And I think that's the thing that kind of confuses me. And maybe that, of course, that's the joy of doing this kind of thing. I can stand here and say you need to shoot straight. You need to be transparent because ultimately I haven't got an organisation or anything to organise anything behind me. I do this off my own bat and have done for a very long time. But I don't think it's unreasonable to demand when people talk about transparency, when people talk about making sure people are informed, you've actually got to do that. And if you're trying to throw word salad at people and it doesn't make sense, it's only fair to say, what are you trying to say? If Tim Wallace is no longer the coach of the MK Lightning and he's leaving the club, say it. Because ultimately, I realise there is a lack of cachet with people being fired in inverted commas, so much as anybody is fired in British hockey from doing anything. But firstly, Joe Wilson, if he ends up back at Chelmsford, fair play. I think he'd do. I think everything he's managed to do at MK, I think he'd be a really good coach in South One. Of course, the thing hanging over the head of the MK Lightning is that they are, and you can go to Company's House. This is not an organisation short of money, and the return on investment for all of that money has been one cup and one playoff, and the domination of the Leeds Knights. So, a lot to be said as to what's going on. There. Ultimately, like I say, I hope Tim Wallace is okay, and that he's stepped away because he's hit the wall in his head about what he does in terms of coaching the MK Lightning, and it's not like a family issue. So, like I say, I genuinely hope he's okay, and of course, all the best to Lewis Christie. He's obviously been an assistant coach for most of this campaign. Now getting the opportunity to coach, and I don't know Nicky whether Nicky's still in chat, but I know one of the things that Nicky's talked about a lot is that MK, it's a team of. Nicky said the other day it's a team of first liners. Where are your glue guys? Well, Lewis Christie for a long time was one of those glue guys for MK. If there's anybody who can kind of galvanise a Milton Keynes roster and believe in the club and believe in the badge, it's going to be him. So really interested to see how this kind of pans out, because ultimately, irrespective of the bad season so far, if MK don't make Coventry, you have to feel like there'll be quite a period of self-examination at the Thunderdome come the off-season. Another goal at the Castle and another goal for the Hull Seahawks. Lee Bonner has Matty Davis's side 2-0 to the good against the Leeds Knights, which of course means that everybody gets their favourite gif of Lee Bonner, which is always ever so slightly hilarious. Just checking, because I'm just checking as usual, just making sure we haven't missed any of the usual bits and pieces. What's happening in the Olympic hockey? And that's the Fife press release. I don't want that. Third period as well has started down in Cardiff Bay. Still 1-0 to the United States in the first period, although US have taken a couple of penalties, it should be said. Dylan Larkin from Zach Wierenski from Tage Thompson for the United States as it stands. Just quickly need to send that message. Just because I've noticed that Ben from Zero Pucks Given has gone live on Instagram, so we're just going to have a quick poke. You won't realise that, and also the light is shining on everything, so it's causing a problem for that. There he is. We'll have some fun with what you're doing. we'll leave Ben to his own devices for a minute. But yeah, questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to kind of chuck in about anything over the next over those bits and pieces. Like I say, Fife, providing they get to the end of the season, I think that's probably the biggest thing, because there was some concern that Fife were not going to be able to complete the campaign as it stood, which would obviously have implications across the board. And benefit Guildford, having just lost to them. But certainly the fact that we'll get to the end of the season, what happens from this point on remains to be seen. Clearly, Jamie Russell, not one of those people who has been removed. And now we will see whether, but essentially... and the boys from Door 14, Hockey talked about this last night, Fife are back in the same position they were a year ago. All of that progress, all of that goodwill and all that talk has been for not even stepping a step forward, and arguably a step backwards, because things are the same as they were. And MK, well, it's not been a good year for Milton Keynes. I don't think that is a shocking revelation to anybody who's been watching the show across the season and checked the results. The recruitment clearly not done what they needed it to do. Of course, Matt Howlett coming back has helped a little bit, but just sometimes you get it right and sometimes you get it wrong. And I think Tim Wallace has to kind of take this one on the chin. He got the recruitment wrong. In the summer, and ultimately, we might see the biggest rebuild of an MK side since their return to the second tier after leaving the Elite League. I think it's probably where it's ending up going to go. Right. Do we do the SNL next? Do we do the SNL next, or do we do the NIHL next? We always do our little women's section just after 9ish. But what do people want in the chat? Do we want NIHL first, or do we want SNL first? What do we want? I'm going to have a few swigs of my can while you guys figure out what it is you want. Just give people a few moments to get their choices in. I do notice as well that MK have changed their DJ back. Just as well looking, it seems, Retro Night, I've just seen a thing from the Flames, 7th game on the 7th of March says turn back the clock, so it looks like we'll be getting those retro jerseys from the Flames before too long, which we like. Yes, that Lee Bonner gift still staring me in the face. Whatever happens in MK over the summer, having Mac Howlett coming in for multiple seasons will help kickstart any rebuild. It's a good starting piece to kind of rebuild around, isn't it? Knowing that, if you're coming into Milton Keynes, that you are alongside a player of quality at that level, I think. Of course, Pride Week bits and pieces happening across the EIH League, so across the NIHL and the WNIHL, of course, unless you are the Lee Valley Vampires, who have clearly made the decision to make a stand, as we know. Fair play to them. On that. I still maintain the sex and gender policy is poorly written, lacks any nuance, and needs rewriting. So I, as a person who is not of the LGBT QIA plus community, I'm not going to sit here and necessarily and say about that sort of inclusion from that point. I don't think I'm the voice to lead that point, but I will certainly lend my voice to the fact that I genuinely do not think people are changing genders to cheat at sport. I think people who transition because of their desire and or need to do so, firstly, aren't doing it lightly, and we need to treat people as humans. Let's treat people as humans rather than looking at it. I get the need and the want for safety. WNIHL 2 is not women's elite level professional hockey. I think that's why we need nuance. I think there'd be a difference if a elite athlete under this sort of national classification transitioned. I think it would be a different kettle of fish. I don't think it needs to be the same level of panic that happens. Also, transphobia is stupid. I think that's the other big thing that I don't like, is that I think sometimes these things, and people have voiced really sensible questions that we need to have a think about in a physical contact sport. I do, however, think a lot of people have answered those questions, but people have raised reasonable concerns. Some people have used it to be transphobes and be nasty to people. Those people can piss off. 2-0 United States. Tage Thompson has the US 2-0 to the good inside the last minute of the first, which now gives Slovakia a much bigger mountain to climb. The Slovaks need a goal early in the second to kind of cause the thing. Right, SNL or NIHL? What are we doing next? Let's get some opinions. What do people want first? Because it's all clicks and buttons at this point as to what we do. Just crack my neck as well into the bargain because that's hurting from being too straight for too long. I'm getting old. Everything cracks and creaks for the most part. Excuse me. Just double checking, make sure we've not missed anything. SNL. Tom was the first person to say SNL, so let's do SNL. Which means I will click that button and get things up. Saturday in the Scottish National League, 3 games were on the docket, and I know, Kilmarnock didn't win, but they got close. That's closer than they've been for quite some time. However, they do go down at the Galleon by 6-3 to the Solway SNL Sharks. Edinburgh and North Ayr wasn't close at all. An absolute rout for the Capitals. They win by 9-0 away at the Wild. And then a pretty big breakout for the Paisley Pirates. Probably a step too far away to get the league title now for Paisley, but you have to think that the playoffs are going to be in sight for the Pirates, given the sort of roster that they've got. They win up in Aberdeen against the Lynx by 7-3. Oh, make sure that's got, yeah, it has ticked over. Into Sunday then, and well, Solway couldn't get maximums back to back. But another tight game. Whitley seemed to struggle with Solway, and I'm not quite sure why. But either way, the Warriors do get the win, and they get the shutout into the bargain for Tom Brown, but only 2-0, which is probably not the score people were suspecting. Kilmarnock scored 3 goals back-to-back in games, but lost 9-3 to Edinburgh up Murrayfield to keep their losing record still going. But then a big win for the Kestrels, compounding the misery for Aberdeen. A 0-point weekend for the Lynx. They lose by 5-0 in Fife against Kirkcaldy. Of course, remember to check out all of these bits and pieces, all of these graphics over at SNL Ice Hockey Updates over on Facebook. Fantastic work across the season from the folk there. Edinburgh 5 points clear with a game in hand over Whitley Bay at the top of the Scottish National League, with the amount of games ticking down. Whitley might have to look towards the cup and the playoffs. It looks like the league title is just a little bit beyond their reach. Dundee in third on 39. They have 2 games in hand on Whitley into the bargain. Paisley in fourth. Kirkcaldy, Aberdeen, Solway hop above North Ayr given their win at the weekend. The Wild are now down to 8th but have a game in hand over the Sharks. Kilmarnock still at the bottom, and you have to venture, given their record of conceding goals, they will pass the 300 goals conceded mark before too long. And that game might come this coming Saturday. 3 games on the docket for the Scottish National League. The Thunder welcomed Whitley Bay to the Galleon Centre. Kirkcaldy versus North Ayr at Fife is a 6 p.m. face-off. Then 6:30 p.m. at Murrayfield, Edinburgh versus Aberdeen. And into Sunday, just the 2 games and another chance. They got close on Saturday, did the Thunder. They will now have to try and get their first win of the season away at the Dumfries Ice Bowl on Sunday against the Solway SNL Sharks. That's 5:15 down at the Dumfries Ice Bowl. And then, of course, where else on a Sunday but Hillheads, Whitley Bay Ice Rink, Whitley, Dundee in the league, not the second leg of their cup game, this particular one. So a chance to set down a marker going forward. Oh, that is the WNIHL. We will click that button there and just come back here for a second. But yeah, so some interesting bits and pieces. It looks like Edinburgh, if they hold serve, are going to win the SNL League title. But you do have to wonder about the Cup. About the Cup and the playoffs in particular. Look like they could be really tasty in Scotland. For me, one of the things I want to look at for my hockey excursion next season is going to Billingham or Whitley. The SNL, not unreasonably, for people unaware, I live on the south coast of England. So if I go north, everything is north. There are parts of Portsmouth that are technically north to me. If I go south, I get the Isle of Wight and Wet Feet and the French. But part of me kind of wants to see the SNL. And because I need to get North 2 and I need to get the SNL. So for my hockey excursion next season, I want to look at getting one of those two leagues ticked off. Because I will have a couple of weekends free. I know I will. It's whether I use them, whether I go across to Belfast again, which I have to confess I really want to do, because that was very, very big and eye opening. Do I go abroad? There's a bunch of different options that I've got, but I do want to go to Billingham. I do want to try and get a game in. In the SNL somehow. How I go about doing that would be the question. It's about looking at what games are available, where I can get to, and of course, making sure that I sort of keep within the agreements that I have with Emily, who of course, without whom none of this happens, because she has supported me through thick and through thin, and through some very frustrating times and some very, very good times into the bargain as well. So one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to argue with the wife. Either way, it's time to have a look at how things have gone across the National Ice Hockey League's Divisions 1 and Division 2, using, of course, the fantastic box scores documents that are available over at nhlstats.wordpress.com. Big thanks, as always, to the legend that is Joe Scutts for all the work that he does. Starting as we usually do in North 1. And no, your eyes do not deceive you. The Sheffield Scimitars haven't just won once. They've won twice. They are out of playoff contention, but they are still they want to cause a few headaches along the way, it clearly seems, and they have beaten the Hull Jets by 4-1 at Ice Sheffield on Saturday. Bo Reader, of course, doing good stuff with both the Jets and the Seahawks this season, getting the visitors ahead by the end of the first period, but then goals in the second from Lewis Swaffield and Ollie Turner, and then goals in the third from Ben Cutts and an empty netter from Brandon Chard means the Scimitars have gotten themselves a second win of the season and pushed themselves fully and firmly away from the Goose Egg Club. 49 saves from 50 shots for Nick Winters as well into the bargain. Gunfight at the Forum on Saturday night, but another win for Telford Tigers too as they head towards the cup final. They win by 8-5 over the Billingham Stars. Some pretty goals in this one, some ugly goals in this one, but ultimately Jason Silverthorne's side able to do the business though. Chris Sykes picking up his 50th assist of the season into the bargain, because of course he did. Vladimir Luka scoring is now up to 51 goals on the campaign. Goals for the Stars, a hat-trick from Roland's Grittans, and goals as well from Chris Sykes and Michael Elder. Goals for the Tigers, a hat-trick for Vladimir Luka, and the other goals coming from Tyler Summerton, Brody Jessen, Ben Washburn, Jason Silverthorne and Matt Maurice. Widnes got a kicking away at Solihull, who went on a bit of a poor run. You wondered whether they might at one stage have started to reel Blackburn in, but that all kind of fell away. Of course, the coaching changes happened, but they showed absolutely no mercy on Saturday night at Hobbsmuck Road, but going into double figures against our friends from Widnes. 4 goals on the night from Dan Mulcahy, 2 from Phil Mulcahy and 2 from Nicholas Otterson. Lucas Price, Jacob Race and Edgars Landsbergs with the other ones. Our friend Luca made blimey, that is 46 saves through 40 minutes. No wonder they took him out for the third period, and a pretty calm and quiet one. Ben Lee getting 19 seconds of ice time in the first, because I'm sure something went wrong with the skate there. And then the big one on Saturday. The maths were really, really simple for Dominic Osman's side, and we do wish Dominic Osman all the best. Taken ill over the weekend and taken to hospital, so hopefully he is okay on Sunday. But this was the big one. The maths were simple. Win and you are champions. And the Blackburn Hawks, well, they went about it the hard way, 1-1 after 33 minutes, but eventually found their way through. Bobby Strictly, Adam Barnes and Liam Charnock. And then you can see Adam Barnes, his 43rd goal of the season, the North 1 championship winning goal. The Blackburn Hawks cannot be caught. They are the Morley Conference champions of the NIHL. Frankie O'Sullivan with the Leeds Knights goal there. Congratulations to Graham Lomax, to Dominic Osmond, to all of the guys at Blackburn on their league success. Of course, all eyes turn towards who will be the cup winner after this weekend. Billingham on Sunday, well, of course, their league title was finally wrested away from them on Saturday night. So on Sunday, they took it out on the Nottingham Lions, winning at the NIC by 6 goals to 3. Goals for the Lions in this one: 2 from Alex Rushby and 1 from Charles Owen. Goals for the Stars: 2 from Chris Sykes, and the others coming from Ben Greenhalgh, Roland Grethans, Michael Elder, and Callum Wilkinson. Widnes, it didn't get better for them, but they did at least score on Sunday, and then Solihull scored 9, 20 goals in 2 games against the Wild this weekend for the side from the Midlands, because clearly wanting to make a point into the bargain. Luca in for the entire 60 minutes was our friend. 49 saves, which is still bonkers into the bargain. Flynn Massey with the lone Widnes wild goal. A hat-trick for Nicholas Otterson for Solihull. The other goals coming from Louis Allen, Corey Goodison, Dan Mulcahy, Edgar Landsbergs, Jake Riley and Sean O'Neill. And then the Hawks were back home for a party, and well, like all good sides, if you win on the Saturday night, they very rarely win on the Sunday. It should be said. I was there on the Saturday night back in 2010 when the Coventry Blaze won the Elite League title. Reports are that most of the side played the Sunday game against Belfast at the Sky Dome still drunk. Either way, this one a pretty close encounter, because ultimately there's some statements to be made heading towards the postseason, and given the fact that D-side have their eyes firmly set on the cup. Jake Witkowski getting the late power play goals. You can see a lot of power play goals in this one, and a short-handed goal from Jake Witkowski into the bargain. You can see a lot of the bits and pieces. A 20-minute abusive official penalty at 60 minutes. This is also potentially to do with Blackburn's level 2 coach being kicked out of the game on Sunday, and an agreement needing to be made to allow the game to continue. Either way, D-side managed to pick up the win. Tom Barry, Liam Charnock and James Royds with the goals for the Hawks. Jake Witkowski with 2, Damani James, Colin Cromie and Rhys Edwards with the goals for the Dragons. And the Shims, well, they could have hoped for back-to-back wins. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. The 30th loss of the campaign for the Scimitars. They go down by 10 goals to 3 in Shropshire against the Telford Tigers. Another dominating performance from Telford as they too look to set down a marker ahead of the upcoming weekend. Bailey Challenge with 2, Jake Scott with the other goal for the Shims. Hat-trick for Matt Maurice for the Tigers. Another 2 goals and a 5.9 from Vladimir Luka. The other goals from Tom Byrne, Liam Bartholomew, Taylor Stanton, Kyle Ferguson and Tyler Somerton. And then, well, there is one league game. It is Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. Leeds will take on Nottingham. But then, as we all know, we won't bother looking at the league table because we know that the Blackburn Hawks have secured. But the big focus this upcoming weekend across all 4 divisions, there's a few league games that are being fitted in and around it, which it would have been nice to keep it free just for the cup finals, but it is what it is. Either way, the North One Cup this weekend, Saturday night in Telford, and Sunday night over in Queensferry. Telford Tigers 2 versus D-side Dragons. Please note that Sunday is a sellout at D-side. So if you are intending to go and you haven't got a ticket, do not travel. You will not get in. Maybe look at going to Telford on Saturday instead. But it is a sellout at the D-side Leisure Centre. Looks like a fight between Josh Hodgkinson and Kieran Brown. That is smart stuff by Josh Hodgkinson. Go to Whitley Bay as Warriors now in the SNL, and then Billingham only 45 minutes away, so a chance to maybe see both on the same trip. Yeah, the trick will be finding the right days right days and times for bits and pieces to happen. We will figure it out, I think, is the short version, Andrew. But there's certainly the request usually from the wife is to be home on the Sunday for the boy to go to school on the Monday. So there might be some wrangling, there might be some thoughts that have to be done. But either way, we will work it out at some point, I am sure. Into the south, and it was a pretty close affair. The Fire have not won in regulation and pushed the Buccaneers close, but ultimately in the end the points stay in Essex. Max van Mullen with a late penalty shot save to keep the Fire at bay. Uri Husker's game winner, keep giving all the points to the Buccaneers. The Cardiff goals coming from Craig Thurston and Bailey Hine-Pitcher, Artems Kazaks and Max Vinikov with the other goals for the Buccaneers. And then the big one in the league on Saturday night. and it went all the way to overtime. But a 26th goal of the league campaign for Ollie Hemmings-Marsh. Surely he has to be off to the national before too long. Gives the Jets the victory over the Red Hawks in another close back and forth battle between the two big title contenders. Ethan Lane and Ben Painter with other goals for Streatham in regulation time. Hemmings-Marsh first of the night, and a first goal of the league campaign for Alex Rossum for the Jets. Got them over the line, got them into overtime before Hemmings-Marsh OT winner. On Saturday, and then elsewhere, the derby between Invicta and Chelmsford, and where there's only really one winner, as Lewis Clifford edges towards time, having said he will leave the club at the end of the season. You know the Chieftains are wanting to go out on a high, and they certainly made a point of asserting their dominance over the Dynamos. 8-2, the final score down in Gillingham on Saturday. Sam Oliver and Mads Toons with the Dynamos goals for the Chieftains. 2 for Grant Bartlett, 2 for Ewan Morrison, 2 for Ollie Baldock, the others coming from Sasha Maltsev and Tom Saw. Sunday in Gosport, the Devils don't play a lot of home games on Sundays, and well, they may not want to after this one. Their 90s retro weekend. But either way, not a scoreline that will make people particularly happy. As you can see there, Ollie Cackett took all of the Devils' penalties. And if you've ever watched Ollie Cackett, it's not that big of a surprise. Connor Redmond, 2 goals from Lewis English, and goals from Seb Moore and Luke Smittle helped the Jets to the 5-1 victory. The lone Solent goal, a 4th of the season for Josh Martin. And then, well, misery compounded for the Red Hawks. They go winless across the weekend and lose in regulation to the Chelmsford Chieftains 4-2 at the Riverside for the Chieftains in this one. A huge win that blows the title race wide open between the three. Dan Rose and Alan Lack with the goals for the Chieftains, of course, returning back to the Riverside, having moved to Streatham during the season. 2 goals from Halden Barnes-Garther, including the empty netter for him. Sasha Maltsev and Grant Bartlett, his 27th of the season, getting the Chieftains the points in this one. As you can see as well, if we just scoot back up, Ross Miller, 44 saves compared to the 29 shots on Brett Shepherd. Another Ross Miller doing Ross Miller things. And then a huge night, and a huge night for the Buccaneers, and an even bigger night for Max Vinnikov, the young 16-year-old now playing senior hockey, having scored on Saturday in that close win over the Cardiff Fire, gets a hat-trick on Sunday at the Link Centre against the Wildcats too. The Buccaneers 6-0 up by the end of the second period. A pretty impressive performance from Ethan James's side. All the more impressive when you think about it. That's 7 goals on 39 shots into the bargain. Hat-trick for Shea Woolmore, hat-trick for Max Vinnikov, as we mentioned. The last goal for the game for the Bucks coming from Uri Husker, Jay Warren and Dan Bradley with the goals for the Buccaneers. The one game outside of league play, outside of the cup final, is this coming Saturday down in Gosport. The Solent Devils take on the Invicta Dynamos, and then the cup final Saturday at the Hangar, Sunday on the High Road. Slough Jets versus the Streatham Redhawks. For those of you who remember the first season of Banners on the Road, after Basingstoke shuffled off into the mist, for me, that first season of sort of travelling around, the South One Cup final between that I saw at the High Road, the second leg between Slough and Streatham, was arguably one of, if not the best game I watched across my entire time in the wilderness. And I have to say, if these two sides can put up anything close to that again, you are going to be in for an absolute treat. I am aware, as far as I'm aware, it is a sellout on the High Road on Sunday. I haven't heard from Slough whether it's a sellout on Saturday yet. Either way, if you've got the opportunity to go to either of these games, you are not going to miss out. You're going to have an absolutely fantastic time. North 2. Yeah, you can all see the scoreline for this one, right? Sutton have woken up. Sutton are not messing around. Can we also appreciate that the last few goals are all scored by Ryans, just Ryan after Ryan after Ryan. Belfast have won in Cardiff by 2-1. A huge result for the Giants on their quest to retain the Elite League title. Leeds 0, Hull 2 after 40 minutes at the Castle. But yes, Nottingham 2, Sutton 14. at the small pad at the NIC on Saturday evening. An absolute demolition job by the Sting. It's been a tough year at times for Lions 2, but yeah, absolutely put to bed in this one. Charlie Davenport and Jake Fisher with the goals for Lions 2, and then, as we usually do when it comes to these things from the Sting, let's take a breath, shall we? 4 goals for Ryan Fraley, a hat-trick from Ryan Apsley, 2 goals for Alfie Hancock. The other goals coming from Charlie Saunders, Morgan Glasby, Lewis Miles, Connor Medley and Joel Bark. And we just have a look at this. Sam Bolwell making 14 saves on 16 shots in goal. James Guest concedes 14 on 46 for Lions 2 with no backup available. And then, well, a pretty solid win for D-side Dragons too. All things looking like they're going quite well in North Wales at the moment. They beat the Coventry Blaze by 4-3 on Saturday over in Queensferry. The game winner for D-side coming at 59-35. James Shaw, his 18th of the campaign for the Dragons too, getting them the points against the Blaze. The other goals for Dragons 2 coming from Liam Yarwood, Ben Roscoe and James Parsons. The Coventry Blaze goals coming from Tom Brooke-Smith, Ollie Harris and Sam Prosser. At the Walsmouth Versatile Arena on Saturday, it was Aces High, 5-3 win for Altrincham against the Kingston Sharks on Saturday. Kingston 2-0 up inside 8 minutes, thanks to 2 goals from Ethan Daintiff before the Aces roared back. Daintiff with a hat-trick for the Sharks in the end. 2 goals from Josh Milnes, 1 goal from Romeo Nixon, 1 from James Best, and the other from Joe Dalton gets the Aces over the line in this one. And, well, it was a good Saturday, less good Sunday for D-side Dragons too, as they travelled up to Sheffield Sutton, scored 18 goals across the weekend, and a shutout victory. They win by 7 goals to 0 against Dragons 2. Nathaniel Bell only facing 13 shots in the 60 minutes. 2 goals for Joe Colton. The other goals coming from Jacob Trustwell, Connor Medley, Cameron Glasby, Josh Humphreys, and Morgan Glasby, as the Dragons are firmly put back in their box. And then in a real back and forth one that went all the way to overtime, no scoring in the third period. It was 4-4 after 40 minutes. But Marcus Janssens with the OT winner for the Sheffield Titans, who will look to keep their title hopes anywhere close to alive at this point. It does feel like Sutton have things in control, but the Titans have had a really good year. They are not going quietly into the night. They get the 2 points to the Buccaneers, 1 in this game at the Forum. Goals for the Bucks coming from Artem Pavlov, Dan Capel, Matt Pickup and Andrew Finn. The goals for the Titans, Sam Parkin, Marcus Janssens, as we mentioned, Harry Illingworth, Tom Humphreys and Lewis Swaffield. It should be noted as well, and I'll just quickly pull up the details because it was mentioned during the week, because one of the Buccaneers players was quite badly injured during the game. I'm just going to get up the details very, very quickly. So apologies for not being slightly more prepared as it stands. Jamie Patterson, if we just skip back here, it should be mentioned in the Buccaneers. Said he got injured on the Sunday, did Patterson? We're trying to see where he is on the. There he is, yeah. And you can see he had Jamie Patterson there, number 66 of the Buccaneers. This came from the Billingham Stars. Original star Jamie Patterson suffered a serious ankle injury playing last Sunday for the Bucks and faces a long stretch on the sidelines, not just from hockey. At this level of the sport, players have day jobs and bills to pay. So there is a link. If you go to the Billingham Stars social media accounts, they've got those bits and pieces there. They're just trying to raise some money to help bits and pieces whilst he is unable to play and go to work into the bargain. The Lions got battered on the Saturday, but they managed to find a way on the Sunday. Bradford were the team that they managed to squeak by to get their first win of the campaign, and they get a second one in Bradford against the Bulldogs. Lions 2 win by 5 goals to 3 on Sunday over in Yorkshire. The Bulldogs managed to put up 51 shots on James Guest. He manages to make 48 saves into the bargain. 2 goals for Aaron Jordan, 1 from Paul Lane for the Bulldogs. 2 goals for Charlie Davenport, and the other goals coming from Brody Butlin, Connor Bennett and Harrison Meyer for Lions 2. And then, well, another win for the Aces. 4-1 winners over the Sharks at the Storm Shelter. Josh Milnes had the aces ahead inside 22 seconds. Brad Chapman, Kane Moran and Ollie Gotts with the other goals for the aces in this one. Mackenzie Barker, the lone goal scorer for the Sharks, who have a 0-point weekend. League games this weekend in North 2. Deeside versus Altrincham is 5:45 on Saturday, making use of the ice with the Dragons' first team being in Telford for the first leg of the Cup final. And on Sunday, Nottingham versus Kingston is a 7 p.m. face-off in the league. Otherwise, it is Cup final weekend as well in North 2. Sutton, who bulldozed their way past the Sheffield Titans, versus Billingham, who managed to get past Coventry. 3 p.m. face-off on Saturday at Sheffield for the first leg, and the second leg, 5:30 p.m. in the Forum in Billingham. The North 2 Cup will be decided between Yorkshire and Teesside. And then into South 2, and a pretty decent game all in all between the Solent Junior Devils and the Oxford Rising Stars, but one that the Rising Stars come out with the spoils. 7-4 victors down in Gosport over the Junior Devils in this one. A few ringers in for the Junior Devils as well, as you can see. Chris Necrosavicius appearing for the Junior Devils in this one, but ultimately not to be. 2 goals for Riley Panther and 2 for Oscar Evans, who's made a really solid comeback to hockey after a long time out with injury for the Junior Devils this season, has Oscar Evans. But the goals for the Rising Stars, 2 from Chris Beckett, the other goals coming from Kieran Wilson, Harry Harrison, Tom Ravenscroft, Theo Bundock and Danny Williams, keeps the points in going to Oxpens. A bit more one-sided at the Spectrum on Saturday. Not Guildford still trying to keep up the pace against Peterborough. They win by 9-1 over the Cardiff Canucks. The shutout spoiled just before the end of the second period by Joe Tyrrell. Otherwise, goals for the Phoenix in this one. A hat-trick for Scott Bailey. 2 goals for Jared Vigard. The other goals coming from Daniel Sakantsev, Nick Minhinnick, Josh Abbott and Sol Stoodley. The shutout, as I said, it was broken for Jake Stoodley early on late in the second period, but both he and Dimitris Volkovs both getting some ice time. Mackenzie McNamara faces the full 60 for the Canucks, making 39 saves. Peterborough, well, they having lost to MK, which sort of dented their perfect season. They took it out on the Haringey Huskies at Alexandra Palace on Saturday evening. No love lost on Valentine's Day there. Rob Rayner with the lone goal for the Huskies. A hat-trick from AJ Herring, 2 from Leo Markey, and goals from Nick Martin, Frankie Parnell and Ross Clark for Phantoms 2 in their demolition job. Much closer game, as you know. Rule 2 here at BOTW. Don't count out the Invicta Mustangs, and they certainly gave the Slough Spitfires a run for their money. It goes all the way to the shootout before the Spitfires pick up the extra point in this one. Alex Rossum, who of course got his first goal for the Jets on Saturday night, gets the shootout winner for the Spitfires in South 2 on the Sunday. A hat-trick from Aaron Edworthy and Joe Covey with the other goals in this one for the Spitfires. The Invicta Mustangs goals, 2 from Jake Stedman, 1 from Luke Thurkettle and 1 from James Laming. Cardiff 1, Haringey 6, but we don't know who scored anything because, again, the Canucks are terrible at getting in their game sheets. Please send in your game sheets. Trevor, I've got your number and I will ring you if you don't get this sorted out, please. Oxford get the 6-point weekend. They beat the Chelmsford Warriors at Oxpens on Sunday by 9-4. Certainly a goal-scoring weekend for the Rising Stars, getting their scoring boots on coming as the playoffs start to loom large. Not a terrible thing for them. 2 goals for Danny Williams, 2 for Joe Edwards, 2 for Kieran Wilson. The other goals coming from Griff Eden Parish, Dax Hedges and Chris Beckett for the Rising Stars. Robbie Dowell with 2 for the Warriors. George Beckett and Eden Rolfe pick up the other markers for the Essex side. And then a measure of revenge. The MK Thunder ended Peterborough's perfect season but could not do the business at home. The Phantoms 2 winning by 5-3 on Sunday at the Thunderdome. Certainly, if nothing else, we can now know that maybe something of the mini ashes between Milton Keynes and Peterborough, at least for the remainder of this season, will keep things interesting. Ryan 1-4 with 2 goals for the hosts. Hayden Hagar with the other for the MK Thunder. For the Phantoms 2 from Nathan Pollard, 2 from AJ Herring, and the other from Connor Pollard, as Ryan Bainborough makes 38 saves. Non-cup final games. One in the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup. Lee Valley will host Oxford on Saturday evening. In the league on Sunday, Lee Valley will host the Solent Junior Devils. So a double home weekend for folk in Lee Valley. But the cup final, Who else was it going to be? Peterborough Phantoms 2 and the Guildford Phoenix. Saturday at 6:30 in Peterborough. Sunday at 5:30 p.m. in Surrey. Last year, the Phantoms did an absolute smash job on the Phoenix at home, and then there was no way back in time for the Phoenix on the Sunday. Will history repeat itself? Can Peterborough's quest to win it all in the South continue, or will the Phoenix trip them up at the last hurdle? There we go. There we go. That is the NIHL done. I'll just take a brief pause because I need a swig of my drink, if nothing else. Let's have a quick check as well of the men's Olympic hockey. Still 2-0 as far as we are aware. As we know, like we say, Cardiff 1, Belfast 2 is a huge result for the Giants. It looks very hard now. Belfast are going to have to collapse or really lose some games. They do have another doubleheader against Nottingham coming up though, which could be huge if Nottingham keep up their pace into bits and pieces as well. It could be very big. We have another swig because then it is time to have a look at the WNIHL. And well, things have opened up a little bit due to some of the results. Either way, Guildford with a pretty convincing win down in the southwest against the Bristol Huskies on Saturday. 8-1 win for the Lightning in this one. He says, remembering that Andrew did send him notes for this, he hasn't got them in his hand. Not my smartest bit. As we check there, Katie Edgington with the lone goal for the Huskies in this one. For the Guildford Lightning, a hat-trick from Margot Sire. The other goals coming from Beth Hill, Isabella Zidienska, Cara Jones, Lydia Walsh and Izzy Eggington. On Sunday, a comfortable win at home for the Solihull Vixens. They beat Streatham by 6-0. Katie Henry, Jodie Alderson-Smith, Hannah Ware, Robin Mullen, Talia Davidson-Wright and Lydia Lutwich with the goals for the Vixens. The table then as it stands, the Queen Bees still top, tied now on points with the Vixens, but they have 2 games in hand and the goal difference to show for it. As you can see there, the Queen Bees are plus 47 goal difference, but it's pretty tight. First and second on 18 points, third and fourth on 16 as Whitley Bay now dropped down. But it certainly is not over and done with when it comes to the Women's Elite League. We could be in for a really exciting end to the season, given as well the season is likely to last into May. If you're close to any of those games, you might want to get yourself down and check out what is happening in the WNIHL. Fixtures though this upcoming weekend, and it's a double away weekend for the Whitley Bay Beacons. They are ladies on the road Saturday in Slough against the Queen Bees before travelling across for a 3:30 face-off on Sunday at Bristol against the Huskies. As we just move our bits and pieces up, into WNHL 1 North, and a very clear winner in the Scottish Derby. The Caledonia Steel Queens batter the Solway Sharks by 13-2. Maya Beretta with 4, Hannah Brockinier with 2. The other goals coming from Jess Bridger, Vicky Carson, Diana Connor, Kat Eastwood, Nikki Russell, Asa Kenzibakova and Caitlin Morrison. The 2 goals for the Sharks coming from Cassie McGregor and Rebecca Boardman. And then another pretty one-sided game. The Kingston Diamonds, desperate to get back to the top flight, take it their frustrations on the Widnes Wild. 16-0 the final score in this one. Katie Marsden with 3, Katie Payton with 2, Kiana Tate with 2. The other goals coming from Melissa Veal, Holly Cornford, Katie Marsden, Millie Thalborn, CJ Ashton, Anya Kadejevic also had a hat-trick. Misread their apologies on that one. Erica Proud and Maya Forbes with the other goals for the Diamonds, who, as we say, gave them an absolute walloping. And then in the derby, Nottingham and Sheffield go together in hockey like cheese and pickle. But a win for the Shadows and a pretty impressive performance all in all. A hat-trick from Emma Taylor-Lonsdale. We're missing a goal scorer there in this one, but the lone goal for the Vipers coming from Gemma Dilley. The Diamonds still top of Division 1 North, 4 points clear of the Caledonia Steel Queens. We'll get to the fixtures in a little bit because we do actually have them this week. Then, as you can see there, a pretty big result for the Cambridge Kodiaks, of course, new to 1 South this season, but a 4-4 draw at home against the Fire Bees. Chloe Carter, just double checking. Chloe Carter, Julia Mabry, and Christina Ashley with the goals for the Kodiaks. A hat trick from Rebecca Wozlinski, and the goal coming from Amber Armstrong for the Firebees in this one. And then a pretty comprehensive win for the MK Falcons. They win on the high road against Streatham Storm 2. We don't have a record of the Storm goal scorers. We do know who scored for the Falcons, and certainly a game to remember for Katie Anderton. A hat trick for her. 2 goals for Bryony Russell, and then the other goals coming from Hannah Mezarazova, Sam Ruff, Erin Roche, and Michelle Lyle. The Top Cats still top of the table in South 1. They have a 7-point gap over the Firebees and 8 points clear of the Kodiaks. North 2 Valerie and the Port Telford Wrekin Raiders, they just cannot catch a break. Another heavy defeat for them. They lose by 15 goals to 1 away at Leeds against the Roses. Cara Savage with the lone goal for the Raiders. For the Roses, a hat-trick for CJ Harrison. 2 goals apiece for Taylor Simmons, Tori Scott, and Morgan Walker. Jess Holgate, Claire Rankin, Libby Foster, Fakare, Vaita Lavicute, Sophie Lancashire, and Louisa Keller. I apologise for that pronunciation. Even as someone who speaks German, any language that's not Germanic, I immediately struggle with. No games played in South 2. In South 2, Valerie this coming week. The Haringey Greyhounds still top there. North 2 Elizabeth, and well, good win for the Steel Queens, but the Steel Queen Bees do the business as well. They win by 7 goals to 0 over the Nottingham Vipers. A hat-trick for Mara Phillips in that game. Marion Brewster, Charlie Day, Zoe Galloway, and Rebecca Nixon with the other goals there. Leeds Thorns got the other win of the North 2 Elizabeth weekend. They beat Kingston Diamonds 3 by 6 goals to 0. Lucy Hurst with 2. Enya Cooper, Isla Morris, Holly Brooks, and Aoife Carter Metcalf with the other goals for the Thorns in that one. No fixtures in the North 2 Elizabeth this weekend. Elsewhere, in South 2 Elizabeth, a win for Huskies 2. They beat Cambridge Kodiaks 2 by 3 goals to 1 up in Cambridge. Coventry Phoenix with a win in the Sky Dome, beating the MK Falcons 2 by 5 goals to 0. And then, as you can see, you're not reading that wrong, 19 goals to 3, the Invicta Dynamics win against the Lee Valley Vampires. We don't have the Vampire scorers, but we can tell you that Lucy Mewett scored 8 goals for the Dynamics. Charlotte Davenport Jeffrey had 5, and then it was hat-tricks apiece for Chelsea Meany and Leah Ferrier. Just a bit one-sided there. It should also be noted the Dynamics are top of the South 2 Elizabeth table. They have won 11 from 11. In the under-16s North, a pretty comfortable win up in Scotland for the Billingham Stars. They beat the Caledonia Iron Maidens by 5 goals to 1. Rebecca Nixon with the Caledonia goal. Goals for the Stars coming 2 from Libby Foster, and then goals apiece from Hannah Watson, Freya Appleton, and Matilda Wilson. And then we had the big girls derby, and now we have the slightly younger ones derby as well. And another win for Sheffield. They beat the Nottingham Vipers by 3 goals to 2. The other bits and pieces we have results-wise from the Frank Wright Development Conference in the East. Peterborough Phantoms women beating the Medway Red Kites by 8 goals to 2, and in the West, the Slough Sirens Odyssey beat the Coventry Phoenix Rising by 9 goals to 2. The fixtures then this upcoming weekend across the rest of the WNHL. 1 game in 1 North. Sheffield take on Solway. That's on Sunday at Sheffield. In South 1, Chelmsford Cobras take on the Swindon Top Cats. That might be a bit of an interesting test for the Cobras. The Top Cats looking to maintain top spot. MK take on Cambridge at the Thunderdome on Sunday. North 2 Valerie, Sheffield Shadows 2 take on the Blackburn Hawks, and Whitley Bay Beacons 2 taking advantage of the fact that the first team are on the road. They will take on Kingston Diamonds 2 at midday on Sunday. South 2 Valerie, Cardiff Comets welcome the Slough Sirens across to the Vindico. Chelmsford Pythons take on the Solent Amazons. And then the last games in South 2 Elizabeth, Cambridge Kodiaks 2 versus the Invicta Dynamics. Can the Dynamics keep their perfect season going? Bristol Huskies 2 versus Cambridge Kodiaks 2 is on Sunday, and the MK Falcons 2 take on the Lee Valley Vampires. There we have, we've done it. Every game, every league, because this is where British Hockey lives here on the VOTW What's Current stream. Every game played over the last week and a bit in British Hockey. We've given you all the fixtures into the bargain as well. We open the door. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chat about here on a Friday night. Obviously, there's some hockey to go and watch momentarily as well, so we won't keep you for too long, so we can all go disappear off and watch the third period of USA versus Slovakia. But yeah, sit whatever you want in the chat. A lot obviously going on. Really interested to see what happens with Slough. Not Slough, sorry. With well, I'm interested to see what happens with Slough because of the cup finals. Who's going to win the cup finals? Lots going on. Did I miss the third goal whilst we were all talking? But apparently 3-1. It was up 2-1 in the fact that... either way, Edgar Svengus has scored for Leeds. But yes, a goal in that game. Certainly really, really looking forward to the cup finals. For me, from a personal perspective, and only because he talked about it in our interview that I did with him a little while ago, Tyler Delabatouche, the Deeside Dragons netminder, who of course as well plays for the Manchester Storm, said to me before the cup bits and pieces were sorted out, a third goal was scored by Chamberlain. There we go, that makes sense. But Tyler Delabatouche said to me, if Deeside make the final, we win the cup. And I can't lie, off the back of that level of confidence, and also because obviously, as you will tell from the interview, I interviewed both him and Luca Tassantri together at the same time. We just all sat on a Google Meet and chatted about it. But like Tyler said it, and Luca immediately laughed, and we all sort of laughed about it because it was that sort of level of confidence that he just reckon that they can. So I'm really interested to see. I kind of want Deeside to do it. It's nothing against Telford at all. Nothing against Telford in the slightest, and of course Karen we know watches the show from Telford. But I do kind of want to see, and I do like. When I went up to Deeside, Bebo, everybody up there really looked after me when I went up there at the back end of last season. So very, very happy to see things just working really well in Deeside. Everything going okay, and certainly if the opportunity arose, would I go back? 100% would go back. Really, really would really enjoy the opportunity to go back to Queens Ferry if the opportunity arose. Because this is the thing, of course, is that particularly as well if I still commentate next year, and I won't lie, I hope I will do. You know, certain weekends will be what's available to me, and I have to kind of take what weekends are free, and then have to kind of figure out what games are there to kind of go to as a result. Nicky obviously, because he does 4,000 and counting, and that's kind of it at the Mo. He has much more freedom about where he can go, and that's absolutely fine. Nicky and I are stylistically very, very different, but we have the same sort of love of being able to just go and watch hockey in different places. It's really, really fun. 3-0 USA. Jack Hughes has the Americans a third goal to the good, and the mountain now pretty steep to climb for Slovakia in Milan Cortina. But yeah, in terms of the cup finals, where do I see it going? I'll say Deeside for North 1, just because I'll put my words on the line with my heart on that one. South 1 is arguably for me the closest to call. Just because we know Slough and Streatham can really do a number on each other. I think unfortunately in North 2 and South 2, I think the obvious answers are there. Billingham will 100% run Sutton a lot closer than I think Sutton will want to be run, but I think Sutton do sneak it. And then in South 2, I think Peterborough nick it, but if any of the four go to overtime, North 1 is the one that's going to go to overtime. I think Peterborough probably just got a bit too much this season, it looks like. But certainly, if you're asking me pick games that could go to OT, North 1 and South 2, they're the ones that I feel like could really go to OT. I like the Buccaneers. I like what they're trying to do. I just don't think they quite have Sutton's depth, and I think that's shown across the league season as well. And certainly with the way Sutton took the Sheffield Titans apart in the semi-final of the North 2 Cup, that's where I kind of think it's going on that one. Slough Streatham for me is a coin flip in that sense. But I think 4-0, blimey. We look like we have a date with Destiny on Sunday for the Canada and USA again. If you've not watched the highlights of Finland versus Canada, go back and watch it. Jack Eichel with the fourth. Ethan Hare has a fourth goal for the Seahawks by the look of it. Do we have another goal for Leeds? It looks like they're all going in. Either way, Jack Eichel getting the getting another goal for the Americans. Just double checking any other news. Because it looks like there's not... too much. No other immediate news coming in. We have all the big bits and pieces going on. What do we think of the Olympic hockey tournament, though? For me, I've really enjoyed the women's tournament, I must say. Thought it was a lot... I think the standard of the team... Obviously, America and Canada are quite a level above everybody else still in women's hockey, which is a big concern for them. And they obviously kind of nuked the tournament slightly so that, you know, the teams in Pool A all made the quarterfinals, and then it was kind of qualification otherwise, like we get in a lot of leagues in Europe. But I think the standard of the other teams, like the gap maybe from like was maybe like here, and the gap is now maybe a little bit shorter than it once was. Certainly a lot of the women's games were were much more entertaining, and the quality level was higher than I initially thought it was going to be, given what we know about the standard of international women's hockey. Really enjoyed that one. Men's tournament, insane. Absolutely insane pace and skill on display. Bit disappointed I think the Germans underperformed. I was hoping for more out of them, as you can anticipate. Newer viewers won't be aware. I speak English and I speak English and German. I got into hockey living in Germany, so I very much am a supporter of German hockey in bits and pieces. So yeah, that was a little bit of a bit of a sadness on that front. Of course, I think Czechia and Sweden going out as early as they did is always a bit of a shame. Obviously, Finland have sort of benefited in that. It does look like we're getting Finland versus Slovakia for the bronze medal now, which should be a really good game. Hard to see past the Finns though. Given the way the Finns played today, I would be very, very surprised if they don't take home if they don't find a way to take home the bronze medal as a result. But then again, such a gut punch that maybe they've had the wind fully knocked out of them by the Canadians and the Slovakians, who weren't really expected to even get this far, are maybe able to do something as a result. All remains to be seen. So I have a big old swig of that. But yeah, going forward. So, back next Wednesday, as per usual for the What's Current stream, 8 PM Wednesday night here on the BOTW YouTube channel. Want to try and get some guests on before the end of the season as well, do a few more bits like that, and some of the changes I'm wanting to make will hopefully help with that. But like I say, my worry is that the computer will hold up for it. Either way, we'll try it. Maybe we'll try it and we'll see if it works. And maybe we do what we've done in the past, which is just abandon the graphics a bit. But we'll figure it out. There's ways and there's means. There's people I can speak to about what we can do. But yeah, next Wednesday, 8 PM back here, and we'll go through the weekend's bits and pieces. For me, like I said, I need to. It's been quite busy with games, so I need to get some stuff going on some more hockey stories, bits and pieces. But I did have a very productive email conversation this week with a former player to this country who has got a very, very interesting story that I think would be really fun to tell, just because of stuff that's been happening in the hockey world right now. I have got another idea that's a little bit more... It's a little bit more British hockey in the weeds, but I need to kind of... I've got an idea for it. Sometimes I will have an idea and it's much more fully formed, and then I have the interview and will kind of direct things there. This one feels like it might be I have to do the interview and then kind of pull the piece out of it, which has happened before, where it's just like, I'd really like to talk to this person and then kind of see what we can kind of build out of the interview as a result. But that doesn't happen. That happened when I interviewed Andrew Jarvie, the Elite League and National Division official, where I thought, talking to a referee would be really interesting, because you're a Scottish guy who lives in Cardiff, why are you so far away? And then just talking about his journey of officiating, that's what kind of happened there, where I did the interview and said, right, that's the angle I need to take on this. And that, rather than kind of sort of having a really big idea and then asking questions to help flesh out that idea. So we'll see what happens with it. But like I say, I've got plans. And like I say, if nothing else, we're about a month away from BOTW's birthday. it should be like I say, gonna try and just enjoy and celebrate and do all the bits and pieces. Because of course the birthday will be on a Tuesday. The 24th of March is a Tuesday, meaning Wednesday the 25th of March is the plan. Will be the great big BOTW birthday What's Current stream. We will then celebrate on day 15 years plus one, as it were, on that front. Last call. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings before we head out of here, I think is the big thing. Let's all sit down and go watch the rest of USA Slovakia in peace. Big thanks to you, all of you, for joining on a Friday. Obviously not the usual day. Like I say, just gotten a lot done over this week. It's been a very busy week. Commentating on a Wednesday night after a full day of work is tiring. So in some ways, getting a game that was a bit less all action was quite helpful. Frölunda top of the SHL and the STHL, but close in both. SHL, Frölunda and Skellefteå both on 91. STHL, Frölunda on 76. Luleå on 74. Brynäs on 72. I did tag you on social media in this, Andrew, being a big fan of women's hockey that you are. If you haven't, it's on the BOTW X and Facebook accounts. My friend down in Australia, Andrew McDougall, who is a freelance hockey journalist, does a lot of women's hockey coverage down in Australia, has just released a new YouTube video. He went behind the scenes for the first AWIHL game of the Melbourne Ducks, which is the newest team in the Australian Women's League. It had been a 5-team league. The Ducks initially came in as an exhibition team who they sort of played sort of exhibition games alongside. They were a provisional member playing the teams in the league, but it didn't count towards the standings. And then this year, 25-26, where they play across our winter Australian summer, where the Women's League plays. They are a fully fledged member of the league. Andrew was there for the start of the Ducks' journey as a fully fledged member of the Australian Women's League. Sorry I'm late, says Dave. Raiders on the run. Kodiak's nearly filling their barn. It's been a great ride recently. Yep, we've gone through it. We said the Kodiak's 4-all tie against the Top Cats was a pretty impressive. Against the Firebeats was a pretty impressive game all in all. Seem to be really finding their feet in South 1, which is a really, really good sign to see. Hopefully they're able to kind of push on. Might take a while maybe for them to reach the elite, but got to start somewhere, and the foundation for the Kodiaks in South 1 really appears to be being laid, which is great stuff to see. Right, any more for any more? Any more for any more? Oh. Those are very, very good. It really just helps. Just a nice, easy drink sometimes on a Friday where we're doing stuff. Then maybe it's a bit, cracking out the sort of the 12% beers is always an interesting one to do. Especially, maybe I should do that. Maybe we should do that actually on the birthday one. just do like a 15% beer on the birthday stream. 5-0 USA. Well, maybe we don't need to watch the third period, but I'll probably watch a bit of it anyway. Either way, I think we will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one website for all things British hockey related. In the box thinking for my journey through commentary for the Guildford Flames this season is you get the insight into what it's like to commentate on the Elite League and a breakdown of all the games. There's the couple of running with the herds from my trips to Basingstoke. Banners on the road from my trip over to Belfast is there too. As well as Hockey Stories, a long-form in-depth content series that tells you stories from across the width and breadth of hockey from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. If there's a story to tell, Hockey Stories is the place you can get that. Nearly 15 years worth of stuff for you to check out over on the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Head into the description of this YouTube video. You can get the links to all of our socials. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Blue Sky, just so you can check out bits and pieces there, as well as the link to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Not going behind a paywall, but it does cost to do things, of course. And if you like what you see and you enjoy what you get from BOTW and want to help keep the lights on and keep the wheels spinning, please do consider donating over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. If you don't have the money, that's absolutely cool. Just share out an article that you like, tell people about what's going on here. And then, of course, there's the usual bits and pieces. Friday tonight, but we'll be back next week and for the rest of the season, by the look of it, on our usual spot. Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. here on the BOTW YouTube channel for the What's Current stream. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like, share videos and all of that good stuff. It's always appreciated as we keep the algorithm hamster happy, fat, and fed. And then and like I say, we're edging towards the birthday. You can join us, and like I say, with Guildford not having any more Wednesday night games, we'll be here for the rest of the duration for here until the season ends at the middle back end of April, for the only show that goes through the absolute lot, every game, every league. This is where British hockey lives. It is here on the What's Current stream. Big thanks for joining us on a Friday. Like I say, back to the usual next week. Should be a good one. Really interested tomorrow. Guildford versus Sheffield. Sheffield are, whether you like them or loathe them, are one of the big teams in hockey in this country. So getting them coming to town and getting the commentary on them is always pretty interesting. Really looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. Got a little bit of a prep I still need to do. That might be tonight or tomorrow morning's job. We'll figure that one out as we go. But should be a good one. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do everything you can to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For Banners on the Wall at WordPress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long until next time. Thanks for joining us on a Friday night. Back as usual next week, Wednesday night, 8 p.m. here on the BOTW YouTube channel.